Hello, my name is Father Seamus Hogan, and I'm a faculty member at St. Augustine Seminary in Toronto. I am continuing my conversation with Cardinal Thomas Collins, Archbishop of Toronto, about his new pastoral letter on the Sacred Heart of Jesus. That letter is called Heart Speaks to Heart. Welcome back, Your Eminence.
It's great to be with you, Father Seamus.
I think in our last interview, we talked about so many things, so many reasons why our world needs the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And I think that's very important to remember. One thing I always think that the Sacred Heart can tell us about is what it means to really, how should we say, have true acceptance of other people and have true, authentic love for other people. I think you used something in our last interview, false love and true love. How is the Sacred Heart really an example of true, authentic love, true, authentic acceptance, and what that means?
Well, that's certainly what we see, because the Sacred Heart really speaks to us of the love of Jesus. It's what it shows us what God's love is all about. He came into our world. He lived our whole life, even to death on a cross, and sacrificing himself. He sometimes is called the man for others. And if you look at the way, read the gospel. I always say read the gospel every day, because when we actually encounter Jesus, and it just, when we read the gospel, there he is. Maybe the best, you can start with the Gospel of Mark. It's the shortest, but it's also the most punchy, kind of, you really get it. And you see what, and the Gospel of Luke especially, you always see him relating with people who are suffering, people in need. And you always have a sense that he's there for that person. He's really there. And I remember that I once met a saint, canonized saint, Pope John Paul. I was a young priest over in Rome studying. And we all got to meet the Pope. So we were all lined up, very prim and proper. The Pope came along, and suddenly, click, 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 all the cameras are going in. I got a photo up in my room of this, and he looks at me, and I say, Thomas Collins, Diocese of Hamilton, my diocese. And he said to me, Hamilton. So he looked at me, and then he went on to the next person. Now, it looks like we're discussing the fate of the church, but what he's actually doing, though, he paid attention to me. What I noticed was he wasn't looking over my shoulder at the next person, because he had about 50 more people to see. He just, for that moment, he was present to little old me, who he never met before, though, no, he was present to me. And I think that's really important. That's what love means. And it can be expressed in a moment. And that's what we see with Jesus. Jesus is always present to the people he's with. That kind of caring for people, treating the person we're with as a who, not a what. A person to be loved, not a thing to be used. I think that's very important. Because sometimes we have relationships with people, we treat them as things and just to be discarded or to be used and then dropped. And that's no real love, no friendship, nothing there. But the Sacred Heart of Jesus is the love of Jesus for us. And that always treats us as someone to be loved. Attention must be paid. We're people to be loved. What I am in the sight of God, that I am indeed, no more, no less. I think that's important, because in our society, often we can treat people as things, or we can dispose of them. And Pope Francis talks a lot about that, about the kind of an ecology, not just wasting things, but treating people as something to be discarded. Or even in our society, sometimes people are used, the struggles people face, internal struggles about their own identity, their own sexuality, their own inner struggles, especially if they're growing up. They can be taken over by people come in and they use them to advance an ideology. And they reduce them to an element of their struggles in life. And they say, that's who you are. Well, no, it's not. Each one of us is a who, not a what. We're not a facet. We're not any element. We're not a letter or a label. Each one of us is a person to be loved personally, as a who, by name. God calls us by name. And so that's why I think that's another particular reason in this world where people are often used. We want to stress the love of Jesus, and that's the Sacred Heart. That's it.
It's so beautiful to think that Jesus Christ's heart was pierced for love of each one of us. And it shows us our great dignity, as you imply,
Mhm.
that we are loved by God even to death in a certain sense. And I think that's so powerful, so powerful. And love is so important in our world, because in your letter, I remember you spoke about, I think it was tides of acrimony that are present in our world,
Yes, yes,
cacophonic voices of so many
right,
who are
right. Yeah,
angry,
yeah,
hostile,
yeah.
confused. How can devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, do you think, be a medicine, a kind of medicine to treat the acrimony of our times?
I think it's very important that that happen because for many reasons, a lot of the stresses of modern life, somewhat increased by the isolation caused by restrictions, the pandemic, and things like that. But also, just I think it's when you're working totally digitally, totally in terms of the internet, we're seeing really we operate in a way that is very distant, dried out, sterile, and we can communicate that way too. We can write something, boom, 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 and boom, that sends it off, and and then you realize if you were face to face with somebody, would you say such a thing? Would you not be afraid of saying something like that if you're face to face? This acrimony, this bitterness, and we see it in politics. We see it people like I don't know the history of this so much, but I remember they used to say that politicians used to debate one another strongly and disagree completely on many things. But afterwards, they could go and have a coffee together because they realize I disagree with you, but you are a person, a who, not a what. And yet nowadays, I think in politics, in the church as well, oh my, there's nothing more depressing than to read Catholic websites and like the stuff, the com box down below, slash slash slash, and you know, and I sometimes say, have a heart, like have the Sacred Heart of Jesus. It doesn't mean that we should, because the other side of it is a kind of a wishy-washy sentimentality, and I also speak about that in the letter. Is not compassion, not what we want. That's dangerous too. But this treating someone as a cardboard cutout to be whipped and shut down and slashed, and um, that's not good. And that can happen when we're living at a very superficial level and just from the neck up, just intellectual ideas. Whereas the heart, the affective reality of one another, but also of our Lord, of course, that I think will help us to have respect for others. I think a great saint who I always look to as a model in that is St. Francis of Sales. He lived around the time of Shakespeare, around the 1600-ish, around there, and he died around 1620 or so. That was a time of bitterness. Oh, they had the religious wars of religion, people being slashed and burned, and you know everything, horrible things, and yelling and screaming at one another, firing off all kinds of things on the printing press, which is the new technology of the day. But Francis de Sales, he engaged in those discussions. He was very clear in the faith. He had clarity, but he also had charity. And he would never demean another person. He had that love. And his great symbol was the heart. He is the source, really, in modern times, of the imagery of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, which was picked up by his disciple, say Margaret Mary Alacoque, who was in the order he founded, and used by our Lord Jesus himself when he appeared to St. Margaret Mary, using, as God does, the imagery she was familiar with. And it goes back to St. Francis de Sales. And he's the one who said about preachers, the lips speak to the ears, but heart speaks to heart. Cor ad cor loquitur. And that's what the great Cardinal Newman picked as his motto. So in this world, we got a lot of this sharpness, harshness, yelling and screaming. I think if they have a heart, and the heart we should have is the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And let's just cool it. Think, we just disagree with one another, but let's do it in a way that recognizes each one of us as a person to be loved, not a thing to be dismissed.
Each of us is meant to be loved in a very personal way. And
Mhm.
I think the Sacred Heart teaches us that. But one final question, Your Eminence, which I think is important to me. What can the Sacred Heart of Jesus teach us about Christian discipleship, about how to not only meditate on the Sacred Heart, but how to go out there afterwards and become those great followers of the Sacred Heart. As you said, heart speaking to heart.
Well, I think that is the way that the faith spreads. Like the lights in the Easter Vigil, from the great candle, the Easter candle of Christ, we catch the fire and share the fire. They often say you may be the only Bible your neighbor reads. So it can sometimes be in occasions of giving talks for people in prominent positions, perhaps to some degree, or writing or whatever. But the way the faith really is shared, the life of discipleship, is by the compassion we show to one another, by the family, a mother and a father and children together. That love is the heart of human life. That's why the family is so important. And that's why we need to be attentive to the wonderful writer on the family is G.K. Chesterton, who gives us much wisdom on that. The love within the family. And the family reaches out in love to others. It's a welcoming place. From the heart of the family comes the love of Christ. And the way we relate to people that we work with, that we can spread the faith. I often think I had a more direct way of spreading the faith in many ways when I was working in the fiberglass factory in Guelph when I was a university student in the roving department. When I, on coffee breaks, chat with people, just you sort of be with somebody when you're working there and doing the work or whatever, than I do when I'm, in a position of more formal teaching relationship as a bishop. So I think the key thing is day by day, one day at a time, help people and try in our own lives to see Christ more clearly, to love him more dearly, to serve him more nearly, day by day by day. Heart speaks to heart. The way we love the people we meet every day. And I think there's a great line in the Station of the Cross by, I forget his name now, anyway, this wonderful thing called Everyone's Way of the Cross, Clarence Ensler. He said, "Seek me not in distant places, for I am close at hand. Your kitchen, office, workbench, these are altars where you offer love, and I am with you there." And I think that's what the Sacred Heart means.
Very good. Thanks for that very powerful and consoling message, Your Eminence. Thank you. Thank you so much. And to read Cardinal Collins's pastoral letter titled Heart Speaks to Heart, please go to www.archtoronto.org. There you'll find many more Sacred Heart of Jesus resources, including Cardinal Collins reading his letter and more interviews featuring myself and the Cardinal. Thank you for watching, everyone. Take care.